Welcome to the show. And today's show is an amazing show. And you know why? Because I have a true outlier tonight with me, and that outlier just steps way ahead from all of us. Why? Because he took an opportunity, capitalized on it, and made an everlasting impact in his life and the life of many. Outlier Show, brought to you by your host Rizwan Rashid, where we talk about the people who have been living on the outskirts of human potential, doing something extraordinary. And tonight, please help me welcome a dear friend, and I look after this person as a mentor, as a teacher, and as a person where I aspire to be. Craig Valentine, please welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I love the concept of the Outliers. Reading that Malcolm Gladwell book several years ago and understanding the 10,000 hours and what goes into being extraordinary at something was very influential for me. So thanks for having me.
Well, I truly understand you are a truly outlier to me, to a lot of people. But for the benefit of the people, for our audience, how would you describe yourself as an outlier?
Well, I think what people look at me as is the world champion of public speaking. Back in 1999, I had won the world championship of public speaking. But I think what made me an outlier was exactly what I did right after that. Because right after I won the world championship of public speaking, keep in mind, this is out of like 170,000 people, 68 countries, 25,000 contestants and such. I win the world championship, and the very first thing I did was I went to the bookstore and got another book on the art of public speaking.
Wow.
Because I always believe in that old quote by Will Rogers who says, you might be on the right track, but if you just stand there, you're going to be run over. So it's important to me to keep moving. So now I believe I'm an outlier, but it's also because of the decisions that I've made. Like a lot of people will settle. I didn't settle. I always ask my audience, I say, what is the number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams? All right, what would you say it was? What's the number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams? What do you think that is?
Fear, comfort zone. They just wanted to stay within.
Yeah. And those are all great answers. But the number one thing is not what you think. You might know this, but I used to work for an internet company. And I wanted to go full-time into professional speaking. That was my goal. That was my dream. I always ask my audience, I say, raise your hand if you have a goal, or raise your hand if you want to do anything in life. Right? And yeah, me too. So I went to the vice president of this company. He was a young guy, good looking guy, looked like a young David Beckham.
Okay.
And I said, look, John, I'm going to be leaving because it's always been my dream to be a full-time professional speaker. And he said, that's your dream, Craig? I said, yes, it is. He said, well, that's great. I really admire you for having one, but you can't leave. Yeah. I said, what do you mean I can't leave? He said, well, we've been thinking about it, and we're going to raise your salary up to this. Now, Rizwan, the salary means the same thing where you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I said, well, John, this is not a financial decision. This is about my dream. I call this a dream decision. Mm-hmm. He said, okay, I understand. I really do. But how about if we raise your salary up to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, this is not a financial decision. This is a dream. Rizwan, do you know he raised it 4 times? I kid you not. He kept saying, we're going to raise your salary to this. I said, this is not a financial decision. This is a dream decision. He said, okay, Craig, how about if we raise your salary to well above 100,000 US dollars? I said, dreams are overrated. Come on now. 6 figures back then, right?
Yeah.
That's good money today.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people I could fill up my gas tank for a week on that kind of salary.
Okay.
But I said, look, John, before I say yes to you, I got to go home and talk to my wife. So I went home and I talked to my wife. I said, honey, I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? What should I do? And my wife looked up at me with her big brown eyes and said, take the money, fool. But if you've been sitting beside my wife and me just a few moments later on our old beat up black leather sofa with the chocolate chip cookies baking in the background, you would have heard her say something that can absolutely change your life. And I know it because it changed mine. She said, Craig, this is all you've ever wanted. Ever since we met, this is all you've ever talked about. I don't care how much you try to compensate you. Your dream is not for sale. Mm-hmm. And Rizwan, that's it. Your dream is not for sale. Because most people, like you said, think the number one thing is fear or a lack of confidence or that's not it. The number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams is not something bad. It's something good.
Yeah.
That we settle for, whether it's a good job or a good relationship or a good marriage, a good life.
Yeah.
I always ask my audience, I said, did you realize that sometimes the enemy of the best is the good? Mm-hmm. So I always ask them, are you too good to be great?
That's right.
And I said to my wife, I said, see, girl, that's why I married you. My dream is not for sale. That's what you said. And I walked back in there the next day and I looked at that vice president in his eyes, Rizwan, and I was bold. And I looked him directly in his face and I was firm. And I said to him, my wife said my dream is not for sale. But I left. And that very year, I spoke over 160 times, 44 states, 5 countries. And I'm happy to say I've been running my mouth ever since. So the answer to your question is, one of the reasons I think I'm an outlier is because I didn't let the good get in the way of the best. Mm-hmm. Right? And I followed the advice of my wife, which is no matter where you are, no matter what people are trying to get you to do, remember the words of my wife, your dream is not for sale. And I think if you don't sell out on your dreams, then you're going to most likely be an outlier. So that was a long answer to a short question, but that's part of my history and part of why I am where I am today, thanks to my wife.
Beautiful. Boom. And here's Craig Valentine, and he's just taken over the show, and amazing. I think, folks, if you are listening to us, you actually really, truly understand the power and value of truly able to communicate and communicate powerfully, clearly, concisely. Here's your Craig Valentine, the founder of 52speakingtips.com, and amazing tips in there. You must connect with us. Now, this is amazing because you took that opportunity that I'm following my dream. But most people wanted to know, success comes in what's the first step? What's the first thing? What's the first speaking gig that actually translated you to, okay, like boom, right after you win the championship, but it hasn't turned into professional career yet. So what was the first opportunity that opened up the real a new business of speaking?
Well, my first paid speaking opportunity was, I got paid, I'm not even ashamed to say, I got paid $500 and there were 5 people in the audience. Okay. 5 people. They were foster kids. And I told them, I said, look, this is $100 a plate, right? I'm making them feel like this is real. But I tell you what I think really made the difference was the first 6 years that I was speaking, I saw myself as an artist, right? And people say, well, you got to do this and that and market yourself. I said, no, I don't. I'm an artist. People will find me, right? Because they'll respect me for my art. Mm-hmm. And I fought that battle for 6 years. Now, in the US, that would be 2 years longer than the Civil War that I was fighting that battle, right? And then one day, 6 years later, I looked up and I said, you know what? I am an artist, a starving one. And so I said, I got to learn how to market myself. So I was in a PhD program at the time for organizational psychology. I said, you know what? I don't want to do that. I'm going to give myself my own personal PhD in marketing. And I decided, I read 62 books on marketing that first year. I joined the Guerrilla Marketing Coach Certification Program, and I started learning how to market myself. And that's what made the whole difference in my speaking career. Of course, I kept getting better as a speaker, but it was important for me to learn how to market myself so that people could find me and I'd have kind of a gravitational pull where I'd get opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. So yeah, that was very important for me to make that decision.
So you have a natural talent and ability to speak, and that connected with your dream. But you knew in order to successful to be in the business, there are other fundamental aspects to take with you. So that is what your first thing you did right after going into the business.
Well, yeah, and I'll take you back further than that. Is I don't have a natural talent. This is listen.
Come on.
I'm telling you, when I was 10 years old, I had a lisp, a speech impediment that was so bad that a gentleman named, I refer to him as Mr. H, he called me Daffy Duck. he said, don't talk anymore because every time you open your mouth, you remind me of Daffy Duck. Now, Daffy Duck is that cartoon character that can barely speak. And so that took me back for several years. I didn't say anything. And it was only 18 years later when I won the World Championship of Public Speaking that I felt a little bit redeemed. And then I actually ran into that same Mr. H, and he took all the credit for it. He took all the credit for getting me out of my lisp and getting me to speak the right way. So I say speaking is 90%. I think it's 10% talent and 90% tools. As long as you have the right tools, you're going to be able to communicate your message effectively.
Well, folks, if you're listening to it, don't fall for it, because Les Brown said Craig Valentine is one of the amazing speaker and speaker coach. So he has a natural talent, in my opinion. I reserve my opinion about that.
Well, I tell you what, the naturalness that you see is on the far side of preparation, rather than on your side of preparation. I think that's important to understand. But when I learned how to market myself, I learned that when you're in speaking, or you're in leadership, or like me, you're in parenting, you're in sales, right? You've always got to sell people. So I realized that you can never sell a product. You always have to sell the result. Yeah. And the case in point is decades ago when I went to buy my first car ever in life, I went to the dealership and a salesperson came up to me and he says, "Are you looking at that car?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Great, let me tell you about it. This car has these types of brakes, this type of engine, this type of window, this type." Well, what's he trying to sell me? He's trying to sell me the car, right? I said, never sell a product, always sell the result. So I said, "Thank you, but no thank you, I'm not interested." And I went to a different dealership on the same day, different salesperson, same car. Now, Rizwan, he must have anticipated where I was mentally in my life at that time, young and single and looking to mingle. And so he walked up to me and he says, "Are you looking at that car?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You're gonna look good in that one." Yeah,
connected right there.
He did. He said, "You'll be flying down the road. The wind's gonna be blowing through your hair, and the girls, let me tell you, the girls will be all over you." What do you think I did?
Yeah, sign me up.
Hey, where do I sign? Right? He made the sale not because he sold me the car, but because he sold me the result. And you know what? He lied. I was lonely in that car. just me and my payment. But I will say this, that's when I learned you never sell a product, you always sell the result. You never sell a service, you always sell the result. You never sell, in leadership, you never sell an idea, you always sell the result.
Correct.
You never sell change, you always sell the result. A lot of people go for an interview, they want to sell themselves. Don't do that. Sell the result. What are they going to get as a result? Correct. So if somebody comes up to me and I have my speech coach hat on and they say, "What do you do?" Instead of saying I'm a speech coach, I'll say, "Have you ever seen a boring speaker?" Yeah. I help people give speeches that keep their audience on the edge of their seats and make them glad they came. Boom. Results. Results. Very important.
I have heard this, this statement over and over again, number of times in your book and in your seminars, and it always hits home. It always hit home, especially for all the speakers, coaches, and trainers out there. This is an important statement. If you can fulfill that statement, if you hold yourself accountable to that statement, the success is all yours. And this comes from
whenever I'm in front of an audience, I don't care if it's an audience of executives or speakers or what have you. I'll ask them. I say, "Raise your hand if a year from now you'd like to be at least 3 times better than the speaker you are today." Of course, all hands go up.
Yeah.
I say, "Good, then for free, for absolutely free, no fee, you can go to one of my websites, which is 52speakingtips.com. That's 52speakingtips.com. And every week for a year, you're going to get an audio lesson from me. And at the end of that year, you'll be at least 3 times better than the speaker you are today." Now, if we just deconstruct that really quickly, you'll see that what was the result? 3 times better.
Yeah.
What was the resource? The website, 52 Speaking. Which one did I mention first? Now, a lot of times the audience will say, "Free, you mentioned free." Yeah, which is true. But what I mentioned first was the result. And this is the key. When you have your sales formula, never sell a product, always sell the result. Always put the result before the resource. In leadership or in parenting, always state the result before the request. Because if I did it the other way around, the way most people will do it, it would sound something like this. Raise your hand if you'd like to receive 52 emails from me. Come on now.
Great way of putting it out there. Yeah.
So put the results first.
Folks, if you have not yet figured it out, Craig has also another great talent to bring humor into it, to have that connectivity with their audience, with their listener, because I think one of his quotation is that you let the mind loose in order to connect, something in that nature, Craig?
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, it's important. The more you connect, the more you're going to convert. That's first of all. But the other thing is, when it comes to, you just mentioned humor, I always tell people, don't add humor to a speech or to a story. Uncover humor within it.
Uncover.
And it's already in there. It's within your stories. It's within your characters. It's within the spaces and faces between the lines. But yeah, if you can keep people laughing, I always say, I want to make, whether I'm talking to somebody one-on-one or one on 10,000, I want to make them tall. Think, act, laugh, and learn.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, then chances are we're going to really, really connect very well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the dialogue in my story, that the story I told before, when you laughed, it was all character, it was all dialogue, right? Mm-hmm. When I said dreams are overrated, that's a funny line. Dialogue. When she said, take the money, fool. Funny line. Dialogue. When I said, my wife said my dream is not for sale. This is all coming within the story. It's all true, and it's not added. It's all uncovered. And I think if you can do that, you can be a fantastic presenter / storyteller / communicator.
Beautiful. I'm actually really mesmerized in your conversation and following your trajectory of your career and how you actually learn in order to be better in terms of speaker and a business person. So, one of the questions I have always asked to my guests, at that time, did you knew that this was going to be life-changing opportunity or the path for you?
At the time, at which time? When I first started?
When you said, okay, I'm leaving this job, I'm doing this full time. Did you knew, like, you were a massive success? You have a lot of followers. You have people look after your. I know there's a waiting line to get into your courses for a year long. You only open up in June or July, I think.
This year's July. It's July.
Typically June.
Typically June. That's exactly right. And we pushed it back a month because I was doing another course. Which was my legendary storytelling course. But yeah, right now we have the world-class speaking coach certification program that people can register for. Mm-hmm. And it'll probably be sold out in about a week and a half. It's sold out the first 11 years. Okay. But that's probably one of the best things I've done, because it teaches people how to coach other people in presenting and communicating, and it's just that was one that I didn't know was going to take off the way it did. But in terms of my own business, here's where I realized I had made a mistake, and once I fixed it, we were on the right track. Darren McCroy, who's a friend of mine, he's also a world champion speaker. When we both were really young in the industry, he would make a speech and he would always have a clipboard. And on the clipboard, he would have people give their name and email addresses so he could reach out to them later. Mm-hmm. And he would always say to me, Craig, every time you speak, you got to build your list. You got to have a list of people who can become, you can serve them and contact them, and they can follow you. And I was like, again, back in my days where I wasn't wanting to market myself, I was like, list schmist. I don't need a list. I'm an artist. And so he keeps telling me this year after year, he's building his list. I'm not. And then one day he says, Craig, I'm going to launch a product that I just came up with. I'm going to launch it to my list. And I was like, I don't want to hear about this list anymore, right? So he launches the product. He calls me like 3 days later. He's like, Craig, guess what? I just made $23,000 off that launch in 3 days. I said, Darren, what'd you say about that list again? What was that about the list? And all of a sudden, I was really interested in his list. And that's when I started to build my list, and I started to come up with 52 speaking tips, and then from that point on, everything just exploded, because I made a fundamental decision, and the decision was this: when it comes to speaking and communicating and leadership, I'm going to offer the most free but valuable information more than anybody else. And once I did that, people started following me.
Wow. Wow. Well, this is Craig Valentine giving you all kind of tips and tricks in terms of speaking business. He shared with you how he become the outlier, taking first opportunity by his great story, Dreams Are Not For Sale. A lot more tips and giving information in our second half. We have to take a short break, and once we come back, we'll ask him what is Craig Valentine is up to, what is putting himself in more opportunities, seeing growth, and how he's helping other people coming forward into more opportunities. So stay tuned as we come back in the Outlier Show. Welcome back, Outlier Show. My name is Rizwan Rashid, and my amazing guest is Craig Valentine, an international speaker and 1999 world champion. And this person is actually helping other people with bringing them in opportunities, helping them craft their speech and their communication and the word what they want to describe them in their personal and professional life. Craig Valentine, you have amazing this 52speakingtips.com where you share all this success and tips in order to get them 3 levels up, wherever they are. And now I wanted to ask you that when did you start seeing growth or success coming to you as a business in terms of speaking world?
Well, I started seeing success in the speaking pretty early on. I was getting a lot of engagements. I'll give you an example. I went to a Rotary Club on a Saturday morning one time, and I didn't want to go because I just did it as a favor to a friend of mine. And I spoke for 25 minutes to 24 people on the art of public speaking early in the morning in Baltimore City. And from that one engagement, I got over 40 paid engagements to speak because you had the Social Security Administration there, you had the State Highway Administration there, you had this other financial company there, you had all these different groups there that represented their own organizations. And so they started bringing me in and getting me booked. And then I got the Social Security Administration National Public Affairs Conference where I was speaking in one ballroom and a big presidential candidate was speaking in another ballroom at the same time. And I'll never forget that the White House press came up to me afterwards and came in because they heard everybody laughing in my auditorium and on my ballroom. And they came up to me afterwards and they said, "You were just giving presentation tips, right?" I said, "Sure." He said, "We wish our presidential candidate had been in here to hear them." And that's kind of when it hit me like, oh, am I on that level where I can teach them something? So that was good to know. So that started off. But then really when I created 52 Speaking Tips and offered it for free, and that started helping people, I was getting calls. You've been in Toastmasters. I was getting calls from Toastmasters clubs around the world saying things like, "We start every one of our meetings with one of your tips." And I was like, wow, you're in Saudi Arabia, you're in Australia, you're in South Africa. That's good to know. So that's kind of when I knew I was on the right track. But again, like Will Rogers says, you can't just stand there. Got to keep moving forward.
Wow. And I'm sure you mentioned the 10,000 rule and you have studied that too. Do you feel like you have put 10,000 rule before the success happened, or you have gained the momentum within that time as long as you were committed?
Yeah, along the way. I definitely didn't have 10,000 hours when I first started, and I still don't. I don't even know if I have 10,000 hours of time in front of an audience, but I certainly do in terms of time in front of an audience plus the time that I rehearse, because I rehearse a lot. I rehearse so much so that I can abandon what I've rehearsed and just focus on my audience. But I think it's really important to, no matter whether you're giving a speech or giving a sales pitch or just communicating, is to prepare. My new motto is don't get ready, stay ready. And that I think is really for any type of outlier is preparedness. Good luck comes when preparedness meets opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to get lucky, you got to stay ready. You've got to stay ready. I think that's a very important point for whatever you're doing in life, whether it's leadership or speaking or coaching or going to school. You want to feel lucky. You want to have that good luck. You got to stay ready. And so one of the things I help people do in terms of speaking is to master storytelling, because if you have your stories at your disposal, you're always ready to speak. You're always ready to speak.
So perfectly. I mean, as a speaker, coaches and trainers who are listening to you, if you have not took the note, because note takers are money makers. If you're not ready, if you're just trying to get ready and not staying ready, you are missing the boat. That's like a golden word be written on.
And you just put some more gold out there. Note takers are money makers. That's
Yeah.
what I would call a really good foundational phrase. I just finished a 6-week program called Legendary Storytelling Live. And this is for any speaker, salesperson, teacher, anybody, preacher, minister, anybody who feels like they need to present in a way that has an impact. And so the Legendary Storytelling course was amazing because it taught people step by step how to tell their stories, how to uncover lots of humor, how to make their audience tall, think, act, laugh, and learn, how to get them to take the exact next step you want them to take, and how to make them feel like they're glad they're there.
For the benefit of our viewers and the people who are looking for success, and the success, most people say, there's action, tenacity, and consistency got to be within there. What do you have to say that what are one of the essential part in following your success or achieving your success?
Achieving your success, you need to temporarily experience your goal. You can't just set a goal. You can't just put up a dream board. You have to find a way to temporarily experience your goal. And I'll give you one quick example on that. In the mid-90s, I was an events planner. And one of my jobs, believe it or not, was setting up the stage for speakers.
Right.
All the while wanting to be the speaker.
Uh-huh.
And so I would go to these ballrooms, and I'd move the chairs around, and I'd lay down the power cords, and I'd tape over them, and I'd move the lectern, and I'd move more chairs around. But it never failed, Rizwan. It never failed that every time I walked into one of these auditoriums or ballrooms, I would walk up to the front, and I'd stand behind the lectern, and I'd imagine that one day an audience would show up to see me. And you know what I used to say to myself every time I stood behind one of those lecterns? I said this: today I move the chairs, tomorrow I move the audience.
Wow.
I temporarily was experiencing that goal, and eventually people showed up. And you know what, Rizwan? I'm moving audiences all day today.
Yes.
So that's an important ingredient as well.
Well, this is so amazing. I can't even top that, because you have put together that whole circle around it, and the last one is tag. It's amazing. I in my coaching and training, I talk about that. Believe you're already there, but you have an amazing terminology, tag. I may use that telling people, okay, here's a great common denominator that is gonna feel you good and make you push more towards your goal.
Yeah.
You are amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on the Outliers Show. This show will be coming up on cable TV and IPTV. And I would love you to come again and have some little bit more conversation about your upcoming ideas and how we can get more people in front of more opportunities, getting in the line of success.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you. We just hit the tip of the iceberg, so I'll be glad to come back and share more with you. I appreciate the opportunity. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay ready.
Keep watching Outliers Show. An outlier is in you.